So we're starting and bookending the 2025 off-season preview series the same way we did in 2024. We started with the Chicago Blackhawks and the San Jose Sharks, just like last year. And we're ending, just like last year, with the Florida Panthers, Edmonton Oilers. Our last off-season preview series video of 2025, we're looking at the Panthers and the Oilers and how they can compete and still remain Cup favorites going into next year. We'll get to all these updates from these two teams coming up right now. Hello everyone and welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Now before we get started, don't forget to like this video and subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this without all of your guys' support. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to leave a comment. We're on the road to 500 subscribers. Don't forget to stay tuned for my June 27th at 5 p.m. Mountain Time, June 28th at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, and July 1st at 9:30 a.m. Mountain Time live streams talking about the draft, free agency, and all other things in between. So don't forget to stay tuned for that. But in today's video, we have another off-season preview video, our last off-season preview video of the 2025 season. So we're looking at the two Cup finalists, the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. One team lost in the Cup final, the other team won. So look at the loser first. That's the Edmonton Oilers for the second consecutive year. They had a 48-29-5 record. So they did hit the 100-point plateau after a rather sour start to the season, but they were able to pick it up towards the end of the first half, and in the second half of the season, they wound up finishing third in the Pacific Division. They had to go to Los Angeles in round one, fell behind 2-0 early, but scored 4 straight to win that series in 6 games. Then they were able to win round 2 and round 3 in 5 games, being Vegas and then Dallas, before they wound up facing the Florida Panthers in the second consecutive Stanley Cup final. They won the first game, lost the next 2, won the fourth game, lost the next 2, lost the series in 6. And for basically all that series, Florida was the better team. They had 2 overtime wins that were come from behind victories. That's all they got in the Cup finals. So even though after those first 2 games in round 1, they were great in the Western side, they go over to the Cup final, lose again in 6 games to the Panthers. Bad stretch there for the Edmonton Oilers. So going over to see the point and goal scoring leaders in the regular and postseason. So in the regular season, Draisaitl had 106 points, McDavid 100, and Bouchard 67. And after that, I don't think anyone else hit the 50-point plateau. So you'd expect McDavid and the Draisaitl, 2 of the best players in the world, and Bouchard, probably a top 10, 15 defenseman at the NHL at this point in time, to all hit above 60, 70 points at this point in time. So but to see all their other depth players not have 50-plus points, that's a little bit concerning in my opinion for the Edmonton Oilers. If you look at their goal scoring, Draisaitl had 52 goals, while Hyman had 27 and McDavid had 26. So they had another 50-goal scorer. Again, last year was Hyman, this year was Draisaitl. But besides Draisaitl, no other goal scorer had plus 30 goals for the Edmonton Oilers this year, which was a major blow to that team. Score a couple more goals, maybe they're going to second in the Pacific, but they weren't. They were third in the Pacific, and that's a big reason as to why they were. If you go over to the postseason, Draisaitl had 33 points, McDavid had 33 points, and Bouchard had 23 points. Bouchard, McDavid, Draisaitl were all over a point per game, and even some of their depth players did not have overly bad seasons in the postseason. So very interesting note there. Well, goal scoring wise, Draisaitl led the team with 11 goals. Perry was second with 10 goals, and McDavid and Bouchard had 7 goals. So Perry, the 40-year-old forward, having 10 goals and second on the team in the Stanley Cup final is insane. He had a great postseason, but also shows you how little depth they had when it comes to goal scoring. So very interesting note there. Those are the goal scoring and point scoring leaders for the Oilers. Going over to their advanced stats, they had 259 goals for in the regular season, 11th in the NHL, 235 goals against, which was 14th in the NHL. They had a 12th ranked power play at 23.7 and the 16th ranked penalty kill at 78.2%. So none of them were terrible. They were all in the top half of the league, but none of them were great either. They didn't have a top 10 stat on those 4 stats, but they didn't have a sub-average stat at any of those stats either. So they were sort of in the murky middle where they were good, but they weren't great last year in the regular season. In the postseason, offense, great. Defense, sucked. They had a 3.73 goals for per game, which was 4th in the NHL, a 3.32 goals against per game, 11th in the NHL. They had a 25.4% power play unit, 5th in the NHL, and a 67.1% PK unit, 14th in the NHL. So the penalty kill was almost dead last, especially Los Angeles, Vegas, to some extent Dallas, and even Florida. All four of their opponents walked all over the penalty kill, which was a big problem for the Edmonton Oilers. Goals against wise, they were not really good. The formula this year in the playoffs was outscore their opponent, which is why they're 5th in the power play, 4th in goals for per game. But their goals against, their penalty kill, that hurt them in the postseason. So that's an interesting note there. This team currently has $11.96 million in cap space prior to signing Trent Frederick. So very interesting note there. The 3 reasons why I think this team was eliminated in the Cup final. 1, their depth went away. Surprisingly, the Oilers didn't have too bad of depth scoring in the first 3 rounds, like against Dallas, against Vegas, and to some extent against Los Angeles. It wasn't just McDavid and Draisaitl doing the things for the Edmonton Oilers. It was their depth. It was guys like Kane and Henrique, Hyman, Perry. Like a lot of those guys really had some solid seasons, but they go to the Cup final. Their depth went away. When it wasn't Draisaitl, when it wasn't McDavid, when it wasn't surprisingly guys like Perry or Bouchard, their depth faded in the postseason. That's reason number 1. I think this team was eliminated. Reason number 2, their defense disappeared. Their goaltending disappeared. They could not find any sort of way to shut down the Florida Panthers. Like in each and every one of their games, the Oilers gave up 3+ goals against Florida. You're not going to win a playoff series giving up 3 goals in each and every game. It ain't going to happen. Sure, maybe 1 or twice you're going to be able to score 4 or 5 goals and outscore them. That's not going to be able to win you a series. Their defense and their goaltending, especially their goaltending, completely let this team down. That's reason number 2. This team was eliminated. Reason number 3 was the Florida Panthers, especially at home, did a fantastic job at shutting down McDavid and Draisaitl. They had no room to breathe. McDavid was being smothered by like 2 Panthers defensemen all game long. McDavid, I think, had 1 goal in the entire Stanley Cup final. Like the Panthers found a way to shut down McDavid and Draisaitl. And if McDavid and Draisaitl are not producing well, that team has no chance. And that's reason number 3. I think this team was eliminated in the Cup final. So the depth scoring going away, the defense disappearing, and McDavid and Draisaitl being shut down were the 3 main reasons, in my opinion, that I think this Oilers team was eliminated in the Cup final. So that's my opinion on the Oilers. Though I think they missed their stats, going over to their significant pending UFAs, their RFAs, and their draft capital for this upcoming offseason. So if you look at their UFAs, they have actually quite a couple of interesting pieces here. They have Perry, Skinner, Kapanen, Brown, Ryan, Pettersson, Klingberg, Dermott, Carrick, and Delia. Now Delia, as well as Peterson and Carrick, didn't play at the NHL level this year. I could see maybe 1 or 2 of those guys be brought back on depth deals, but wouldn't be surprised if they hit free agency. You have Travis Dermott, who had 19 games played. Wouldn't be surprised if he walked. You have John Klingberg, who had a goal in 4 points in 11 games, got some playoff time in the playoffs, but he seems like a guy who I think will end up walking. You have Derek Ryan, who had a goal in 6 points in 36 games. If he doesn't retire, I could very well see him walk as a UFA. You have Connor Brown, who had 17 goals and 30 points in 82 games. Really solid third-line player this year after a subpar season the previous year. I could definitely see Connor Brown be brought back. You have Kasperi Kapanen, who had 6 goals and 14 points in 67 games. Actually worked out quite well as a bottom 6 guy. If the contract works out, I could definitely see him be brought back. You have Corey Perry, who had 19 goals and 30 points in 81 games. Skinner, who had 16 goals and 29 points in 72 games. They're both really decent middle 6 guys. I could see him be brought back, but I wouldn't be surprised if they left. So very interesting note there. Those are the UFAs headlined by Perry, Skinner, and Brown. When you go over to the RFA side, there's a couple of interesting RFAs here. They have Noah Phillip, they have Perreault, they have Evan Bouchard, and they have Rodrigue. Rodrigue had 1 loss at the NHL level this year, 3.10 GAA, 862 save percentage. Decent goaltender, like he should eventually be the team's backup. So I definitely think they'll sign Rodrigue. You have Phillip, who had 2 assists in 15 games. Perreault, who had no points in no games. Could definitely see both these guys wind up being brought back. And then you have Evan Bouchard. 14 goals, 67 points in 82 games, probably a top 10 or 15 defenseman in the NHL right now. I definitely think Bouchard will end up being brought back, but if he's not signed by July 1st, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if there were a team or 2 out there who tried to offer him to a big AAV. So we're going to have to see on that, but those are the RFAs headlined by Bouchard. If you go over to the team's draft capital, this team, they made the Stanley Cup final, so you expect a team who makes the Stanley Cup final to not have too much draft capital. That is the case for the Edmonton Oilers. They have 3 draft picks for this upcoming season. They have the blue 3rd round pick, and their own 6th and 7th. So they have no 5th round pick, no 4th round pick, no 1st round pick, no 2nd round pick, only 1 pick in the first 5 rounds. So that's very interesting note there. But once again, they're in the Cup Finals, so very interesting note there. But the Oilers only have 3 draft selections for this upcoming offseason. And going over to 5 ways I think this Oilers team should go about the offseason to try and improve and get better for next year. So in my opinion, priority number 1 for the Edmonton Oilers this year has to be figuring out their goaltending. I've seen a couple of recent reports after they were eliminated talking about their goaltending. Like, I think it's come to a point where they need to make some sort of move. Skinner and Picard, they're both really good goaltenders. I talked about this recently. Skinner's a good tandem goaltender. He can be a 1B goaltender. He's not a clear-cut starter at this point in his career. Picard's a really good backup. Like, I think with a guy who's more of a starter, he could be a solid backup. He's not a 1B tandem type goaltender who can come in the playoffs. Like, he's not that guy. So I think the Oilers have some pretty good goaltenders that are just playing way too above their head right now. So I think whether that be move Skinner for a clear-cut starter, move Pickard for someone who can work with Skinner, like, I'm not sure which route they will go, but moving a goaltender and adding someone who can definitely stabilize this goaltending, I think has to be priority number 1 for the Edmonton Oilers. Priority number 2, extend Bouchard before he has the opportunity to have an offer sheet. Like, July 1st is, I think, only a week and a half away, so he's going to be eligible to be offer sheeted at that point in time. I think the Oilers will probably try and get to some sort of an extension, and I think Bouchard will probably want to sign an extension in Edmonton. I'm thinking for an AAV of probably $10+ million. But if he gets to free agency, like, you can pay an offer sheet player under $11.7 million and only give up 2 firsts, 2nd, and a 3rd. Like, if there were teams out there who would pay Bouchard $11.5 million and give up like 2 firsts and a 2nd and a 3rd in an offer sheet, I think there would be teams out there who would do that. So I think priority number 2 has to be extend Bouchard before an offer sheet winds up happening. Priority number 3 for the Edmonton Oilers has to be get McDavid an extension. McDavid is the best player in the NHL. He's going to be eligible for an extension July 1st. And I've seen a couple of people say maybe non-July 1st he'll extend and might go a little bit later into the offseason, but they have to at least have an extension in place by the start of the season. Like, if McDavid is not extended by the start of the season, it'll become a distraction. And a distraction of that proportion will put a major hamper on the Edmonton Oilers. So I think getting an extension for McDavid at least by the start of the season has to be priority number 3. Priority number 4 has to be move some pieces out. It sounds like they're about to sign Trent Frederick to like a $3.5–4 million deal. If that does wind up going through, it's going to be very hard for the Edmonton Oilers to make any sort of other moves, especially matching an Evan Bouchard deal. So I think having to move guys like Victor Arvidsson is making $400 million, Kane's making just over 5, or Henrique is making $3 million, has to be a priority for the Edmonton Oilers to free up cap space. Those are the 3 main guys. To some extent, maybe I could see a Nugent Hopkins get moved because he's also making $5 million. But I definitely think Kane, Arvidsson, and Henrique are the 3 main guys I would look to. If the Oilers are trying to move out cap, so I'll have to wait and see on that. And last thing I think this team needs to do is rework the bottom 6. The bottom 6 is decent right now for the Edmonton Oilers, but I think it needs to be better. Like, they could lose Kapanen, Perry, Skinner, and a couple of other guys to free agency. They could move Arvidsson and Henrique as trades because they don't have enough cap space. So if that all happens, they need to try and add some more bottom 6 help. So I'd be looking at guys who are on the cheaper side of free agency or lower AAVs on our trade market who the Edmonton Oilers could try and target. Not sure who they could try and target, but I think reworking the bottom 6 has to be priority number 5 in my opinion for the Edmonton Oilers. So that's my opinion on the Oilers. I think they need to rework the goaltending, extend Bouchard, and then extend McDavid, move Arvidsson, Kane, and Henrique, and try and rework the bottom 6 to try and improve this year to try and make it back to a 3rd straight cup final next year. And lastly here, going over to the Florida Panthers. So lastly here, going over to the Florida Panthers, this team's back-to-back cup champions. Let's give a round of applause to the Florida Panthers. Back-to-back cup champions. It's not something easily done. However, we have had 3 teams do it in the last decade in Pittsburgh, Tampa, and now Florida. So very interesting note there. They finished the season with a 47-31-4 record. Pretty solid record there. I think it was just under 100 points. They were 3rd in the Atlantic Division, just barely lost out to Tampa and Toronto. They got Tampa in round 1, handily beat them 5 games. Surprising me in the least because I thought Florida was going to not have the greatest of first rounds, and Tampa was coming in really hot. Florida completely destroyed them. Then they were able to take out the Maple Leafs in 7 games, gave them a little bit of scare in the first few games, but they were able to find their footing, took out the Maple Leafs who won the Atlantic. Then they took out the Carolina Hurricanes in 5 games, a team who, for some odd reason, cannot win in Eastern Conference Finals, got back to the Cup Final, and as we just talked about in our last little bit, they took down the Edmonton Oilers. Lost the first game, won the next two, lost the next game, and then won the next two. Very interesting note there, won it in 6 instead of 7 like they did last year. And for the entire series, basically, the Panthers were the better team. I think bar down, they were the better team. So very interesting note there. Going over to the team's point leaders. So in the regular season, Reinhart had 81 points, led the team. Barkov had 71 and Tkachuk at 57. So all in all, like, you want to see at least a couple more players at the 60-plus point plateau, but having a couple players at the 70-point plateau is not overly bad. And then you had Reinhart lead the team with 39 goals. Bennett had 25 goals and Tkachuk had 22. So just like Edmonton, you had one guy hit 30-plus goals. You want to see 2, 3, 4 of these guys hit 30-plus goals in the regular season. So it wasn't awful and definitely not one of the worst we've seen in these offseasons and previews, but it wasn't the best. Then you have Reinhart, Tkachuk, and Verhaeghe, who all had 23 points in 23 games for the Florida Panthers. They were all a point per game. The Panthers had incredible depth, like a whole bunch of players hit 20-plus points, a ton of players hit 15-plus points. So very interesting note there, but Tkachuk, Reinhart, Verhaeghe, not too surprising there. They're point leaders in the postseason. Well, Bennett, the Conn Smythe winner, led the team with 15 goals and the playoffs. Reiner had 11 goals. In-season acquisition, Brad Marchand had 10 goals. That's just crazy. He was playing the entire playoffs on the third line. That just shows you how deep the scary Florida Panthers team was this year. So very interesting note there. But those were 3 goal scoring leaders in the postseason. Going over to their advanced stats. So in the regular season, they had 246 goals for, which was 15th in the NHL, 223 goals against, which was 7th in the NHL, 23.5% on the power play, which was tied for 13th in the NHL, and 80.7% on the penalty kill, which was 10th in the NHL. So they had a top 10 penalty kill, they had a top 10 goals against. So defensively, this team was pretty dang good all regular season long. They weren't as good offensively at the power play, tied for 13th, goal scoring, 15th. Like, it wasn't the upper echelon of the NHL. It just wasn't top 10, top 5. So very interesting note there. When it came to the playoffs, they led first in basically all of the stats. 4.09 goals for per game, first. 2.43 goals against per game, first. 86.4% penalty kill, first. The only stat where they were not the leaders in the postseason was the power play. They were 25.3%. They were 6th. Like, when LA plays Edmonton, has a 40% power play, you're really not going to top that if you go to the Stanley Cup final. But still, that was still a pretty dang good power play. So they had a pretty dang good power play and the best penalty kill, defensive team, and offensive team in the entire playoffs. That just shows you how dominant of a team they were. So those are their advanced stats. They currently have about $19 million in cap space for this upcoming offseason. The 3 reasons I think this team won the Stanley Cup for the 2nd consecutive year. 1, best depth in the NHL, bar none. This team had insane depth. Sure, they had a couple people who are banged up, but if you have a guy like Uvis Balinskis, who's a decent third-pair defenseman as your 7th defenseman in the playoffs and barely getting time, if you have guys like Mackie Samoskevich, AJ Guerrier, Jesper Boqvist, 2 of those 3 guys sitting out every night because you don't have enough space for them in your 4th line, that is insane depth. Like, unreal depth in the Florida Panthers organization. And I think that is the first reason that this team wound up winning the Stanley Cup. The second reason was they choked the life out of all of their offseason opponents. Like, look at the Bolts. Kucherov, Point, Gensel, they choked the life out of them. Look at the Leafs. Matthews, Marner, Nylander, choked the life out of them. Carolina, Aho, Jarvis, Svechnikov, choked the life out of them. And the Cup final, McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, choked the life out of them. Every single offensive opponent that they have played that had really good regular seasons and even to some extent really good playoffs, they suffocated them. It's the Florida Panthers' way of playing hockey. It worked to a T for them. That's the second reason I think they won the Cup. The third reason I think this team won the Cup was Bobrovsky looked great again. Last year, he was a great goaltender in the postseason. The year prior, up until the Stanley Cup final against Vegas, he looked really good in the Cup final. Like, for the first 2 to 3, maybe even 4 years of that contract that Bobrovsky signed, it looked horrible. But over the last 3 seasons, it's looked like a steal for what he's been able to bring for the Florida Panthers. And he looked great in goal again for Florida. That's the third reason I think this team won the Cup. So in my opinion, the best depth in the NHL, choking the life out of their opponents, and Bobrovsky looking stellar were the 3 main reasons, in my opinion, this Florida Panthers team won the Stanley Cup. So very interesting note there. Next, going over to the significant pending UFAs, their RFAs, and their draft capital for this upcoming offseason. So as usual, for a team who won the Stanley Cup, you expect them to have a long list of UFAs and RFAs, and they do. UFA side, they have Marchand, Bennett, Nosek, Sturm, Asplund, Dalpe, Puljujarvi, Ekblad, Schmidt, Kiersted, Vanecek, and Kakkonen. Kakkonen didn't play at all the NHL level. Vanecek had a 5.14-4 record with a 3.62 GAA and 8.84 save percentage. I could see maybe one of them be back as like a backup role, but I could definitely see both those guys hit free agency. You have Kiersted, who had an assist in 2 games, Schmidt, who had 5 goals, 19 points in 80 games, and Ekblad, who had 3 goals and 33 points in 56 games. I think they really want to keep Ekblad, but given the fact he might be one of, if not the best UFA defenseman, I could see him leave. Schmidt is a pretty good third pair defenseman, but I could see him leave. Kiersted's a really good depth guy. I could see him be brought back on a short-term deal. You have Dalpe and Asplund, who didn't get into any NHL action this year. Could see both those guys leave. You have Nico Sturm, who had 7 goals and 14 points in 62 games, and Nosek, who had a goal and 9 points in 59 games. Both are decent fourth-line centers. Can maybe see one of those guys be brought back. Wouldn't be surprised if both of them left. And then you have the 2 biggest ones. Brad Marchand, who had 23 goals and 51 points in 71 games with the Panthers and the Bruins. Bennett, who had 25 goals and 51 points in 76 games. Both are really solid top 6 guys. Both could get very high cap hits on the free agent market. It sounds like both those guys might want to stay in Florida. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. Wouldn't be surprised if one, maybe both of them are brought back, but also wouldn't be surprised if they could see themselves getting more money on the open market, that maybe one or both of them wind up leaving. So very interesting note there. When it comes to the pending RFAs, they have Mackie Samoskevich, Mackenzie Entwistle, Justin Sourdiff, Thomas Bjornfot, and Michael Benning. Benning and Entwistle didn't play at the NHL level. Bjornfot had no points in 14 games, and Sourdiff had 1 goal in 1 game. All these guys are lower end, decent, bottom end guys. I could see maybe 2 or 3 of them be brought back. Wouldn't be surprised if 1 or 2 of them weren't qualified. And then you have Mackie Samoskevich, who had 15 goals and 31 points in 72 games in his first full season at the NHL level. I think Samoskevich this year is going to be a solid top 9 forward for Florida. Could probably sign on a lower end deal, so I definitely think he'll be brought back. So very interesting note there. Those are the RFAs headlined by Samoskevich. Going over to the team's draft capital for its upcoming offseason. Now, given the fact they won the Stanley Cup, they don't have too many top end draft picks, but they actually have a decent amount of draft capital. They have 6 picks for this upcoming draft. They have no first, second, or third round picks, of course, but they have their own and the Flames 4th, their own and the Sharks 5th, their own 6th, and their own 7th. That's not bad draft capital for a team who won the Stanley Cup. Sure, they have no first round, second round, or third round picks. No picks in the first 3 rounds. But they have 6 picks in the last 4 rounds. And once again, that could change before the draft happens next week. So very interesting note there, but the Panthers have a decent amount of draft capital with 6 picks in this upcoming draft. So very interesting note there. And lastly, going over to 5 ways I think this Florida Panthers team can improve in the offseason to get better and maybe make it to a 3-peat next year. So in my opinion, first priority has to be extend 2 of Bennett, Ekblad, and Marchand. Those are the 3 biggest UFAs. Ekblad has been a top 4 defenseman of Florida for over a decade now. He's been a really solid defenseman. I think the Panthers could sign to like a $5 to $6 million AAV deal. He would stay, but if he really wants to get the maximum money he can get, I think he'll probably leave. You have Marchand, who was a really solid deadline acquisition. I think he wants to stay in Florida, but I could see him wind up taking like an $8.5 million AAV deal and going elsewhere. And you have Bennett, who could get $10 million plus on the open market, but it sounds like really wants to stay in Florida. So I think extending 2 of these 3 has to be priority number 1, in my opinion, for Florida. Priority number 2 has to be finding a backup for Bobrovsky. Vanecek, Kakkonen, both UFAs. So they have to decide, are they bringing back 1 or 2 of those guys to be Bobrovsky's backup, or are they going in the free agent trade market to try and find someone? Could they go after a guy like Jake Allen? Could they go after a guy like Anton Forsberg? Maybe go after a guy on the trade market. I don't exactly know, but very interesting note there. I think priority number 2 has to be finding Bobrovsky's backup. Priority number 3 has to be signing 1 to 2 top 9 forwards, especially if guys like Marchand or Bennett leave. I think this team needs some more top 9 forwards. I think that definitely has to be a priority there for the Florida Panthers. Not exactly sure who they could try and target in free agency, but I think adding a couple top 9 forwards has to be priority number 3. Priority number 4 has to be consider moving Evan Rodriguez or Anton Lundell. Like, if this team really needs to free up some cap space, those are 2 guys I'm looking at. Lundell's making $5 million, and if they do want to bring back Bennett, $5 million as a third line center is not going to be something that they can really do. So I definitely could see him get moved. Rodriguez, he's making $3 million. He had a decent playoffs, but if they are bringing back some of these other guys, maybe signing some cheaper guys, I could see Rodriguez get moved, so I have to wait and see on that. But I think considering moving Rodriguez and or Lundell has to be priority number 4, and priority number 5 has to be add 2 to 3 third pair or depth defensemen. That sounds like they could lose Nate Schmidt, they could lose Aaron Ekblad. Those are 2 really good pieces. So if they do end up losing those 2 guys, I definitely think adding some more depth from the blue line would be some smart moves there for the Panthers. Not sure who they could try and go after, but guys like Nate Schmidt or Adam Boqvist, who they signed last year for cheap, I think that if they go similar routes this offseason, they could be a very smart move there for the Florida Panthers. So very interesting note there. But that's, I think, priority number 5 for the Panthers. So in my opinion, signing 2 of Bennett, Ekblad, or Marchand, finding a backup for Bobrovsky, adding 1 to 2 top 9 forwards, moving Rodriguez or Lundell, and adding some depth defensemen, I think are the 5 things the Panthers should do this offseason to remain Stanley Cup champions next year. So definitely, that's my opinion on the Panthers. That's my opinion on the Oilers. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you agree with me what they should do in the offseason? Or if not, what do you guys think they should do in the offseason to improve and get better for next year? Definitely your thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. That's all I have for today. Remember to like this video and for the like, remember to subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this without all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to leave a comment. I also have a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. I'll link to that in the description below. Can't see you guys all for next video. See you guys soon.